Deputy Leclerc, you mentioned something in the States the other day of a conversation you overheard with the former Chief Minister and the former Home Affairs Minister. Could you tell us a little bit about that? What you heard?
Yeah, basically what I heard was a conversation between the Chief Minister and the Home Affairs Minister during the end of 2008, and people can hear that as part of the Napier report. It's on the blog site, it's downloadable from the Hansard. It's actually what I offered as evidence to the Chief of Police and made part of his affidavit in relation to how he was being suspended, and in my view suspended wrongfully because of the way the child abuse investigations had been handled, and I felt that politically it was more to do with removing the credibility of the issue rather than any individual who was failing. Okay. And that speech highlights, it's there for everybody to see in context, that highlights what was said when it was said, and it was the first opportunity I had of saying it in what was hopefully some context.
Because you have been criticised on the blogs and other places for not coming forward sooner, but you have come forward. Did say why didn't you come forward that little bit sooner?
Well, it's important for people to realise that in Jersey there's very little in the way of media opportunity for people to digest information that doesn't get mixed up with other people's views. So unlike this media, which is unaccredited, or the unaccredited media blogging, you can't put your views across in anything other than sound bites. So I did think about going to the media with it, but I in the first instance contacted the Chief of Police personally on the telephone and told him that I wanted to offer him a witness testimony for his case and in any court or in any committee of inquiry. I gave him the information. I thought that it was relevant. I thought that the inference was that they were trying to put the blame on what they didn't like on the wrong person, and I immediately did that. That was done a few days after the Chief of Police was suspended, and the Chief of Police and I thought it was best to wait for the right opportunity to get this information out. I tried to do that. I tried to do that in a number of ways. I tried to support a committee of inquiry where I could have done that. I didn't want to give it in speeches in-camera debates because those are confidential and people will never hear what's said. But this was the first opportunity I had of saying it, where I could tell people exactly what I heard in a way that I wouldn't be stopped and it wouldn't be edited. It's not so much the privileges that I was afforded in the States, it was more the opportunity to have it said in a way where it wouldn't be cut, edited, and a different slant put upon it.
Okay, there seems to be a culture of fear amongst states members and those who aren't on the executive, for instance, on the Council of Ministers. Do you buy into that? Is there a culture of fear existing in the States now?
Yeah, I think throughout Jersey society that there permeates a culture of fear. I spoke about this to the Williamson inquiry when I went to see them. The trouble is, Jersey being, as you understand, demographically isolated, many of the jobs and many of the families are interwoven. The States is the largest employer. It employs something like 6,500 people. It's certainly the biggest spender, and it's the biggest, obviously, the biggest influence in Jersey life. So many times people are elected into the States where they may have connections or businesses or family members that work or supply services to the States. And generally those associations can be leaned upon by politicians, and it has occurred in the past where independent or so-called independent politicians would raise an issue only to be told, well, you want to be careful about saying that. Doesn't your father work for, doesn't your daughter work for, isn't your son the supplier of? So it's permeated throughout Jersey society, that happens, and unfortunately it erodes independence, this idea, this concept of independent politics. Well, the independent ones are normally the ones that don't bring forwards the propositions. They offer the most in terms of honesty, but they're able to deliver the least because they're not grouping together. I made quite heavy reference to the covert political alliance during the last senatorial election that I ran in. And there's groupings of states members, and that society, the establishment, if you want to call it that, that permeates every aspect of Jersey. It even permeates within the States Chamber, where independent members are, they won't admit it and they'll deny it, where independent members are scared to speak out for fear of being ostracised by their colleagues, and also perhaps in certain instances, which I know of, where they will be intimidated by insinuations that maybe they're too close to certain aspects of debates and they shouldn't be participating.
Is this something new? Has it always been like this, or has it been changed since ministerial government came along? Is there too much power and too much hands?
Radio Jersey, and Ted Vibert phoned up. It was Robert Brown and I were talking about the waterfront, and we didn't think it was the right thing. At the time we were being labelled as wreckers. Now it's self-evident that we weren't wrecking anything, we were just letting people know what a mess was coming, which is acknowledged now. Ted Vibert phoned in and said, look, you know, every time you get told about these lawyers in the States, and when you all start to clamp down, you've got to use your parliamentary privilege. And he started to educate me about what parliamentary privilege meant. I went back into the States the next week and I said to the bailiff, can I ask the Attorney General whether or not we're covered by, you know, parliamentary privilege in here? Can we say what we want to say without fear of being sued? And the bailiff didn't allow me to ask the then Her Majesty's Attorney General. He answered the question himself and told members that we were covered by parliamentary privilege, and as long as we didn't abuse that, then we could say within reason what we wanted to say. But there was absolutely nothing stopping us saying anything at all we wanted to. And from that moment, a cloud lifted and a weight lifted from the Assembly, and people stopped worrying about being sued for everything they said. And a great proportion of control, which I felt at the time was being exercised over States members, was lifted. And then we started to see questions coming from corners that they had never come from before, and people emerging with questions that they would never have asked before.
But there is still this, that there still could be reprisals, like you said earlier, of family members working here, family workings there. So there is still that culture. Is that fair to say? There is still that culture of fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, with what's been going out now, we've seen former Senator Stuart Sivray in court. We've seen what was done to our most senior police officer, Graham Power, QPM. We've seen what happened to Dr. John Day. This puts a lot of fear into a lot of people that I know. They can destroy these people's careers. Does that put the fear into other politicians for speaking out, like former Senator Stuart Sivray has? Do people think, well, look what they've done to him, look what they've done to so-and-so, I better keep my head down? That's what I think goes on. Is it?
Yeah, definitely.
A civil service-led thing.
Yeah, let me put it in context, because this is the main thing. Is, you know, Stuart identified and spoke out against failings within social services. Had I been in charge at that time, if I'd have been Chief Minister, I would have taken him out of Health and Social Services and applauded him for speaking out, and I'd have dropped somebody else in to investigate it. I would have supported Stuart's right to do that if he wanted to. I would have supported Stuart's concerns, and I would have stood by him. They didn't. They rubbished him and they isolated him, and they put him out, and then they spent £150,000 of taxpayers' money to put him in jail for the night. But what Stuart didn't do, and it's no fault of Stuart's really, because of the fact that they abandoned him and they wanted him out politically, he got too close to the issues, and in his own defence he became personal and antagonistic to them. And that is the side that I think was wrong, that he wasn't able to be supported, and naturally he started to get offensive, insulting, and all of the rest of the things that he's done.
Well, if we were to put that into context, then, okay, what did Graham Power do wrong then? How was he offensive, insultive? You know, he's got the same sort of treatment, if you like. He's been rubbished, he's been discredited. John Day, the same.
In my view, Graham Power didn't do anything wrong. What happened with Graham Power was that he wasn't prepared to get behind the coup to remove Stuart. That's what happened to Graham, in my reading of things, as evidenced by his notebook. You know, at the time he felt he was involved with a civil service-led attempt to remove Stuart Sivray, because Stuart Sivray was quite rightly addressing the failings of the civil service, and they didn't like this. And they used their officers, as evidenced by Graham Power in the Napier report, to come together with the politicians to put pressure on press releases being done by independent bodies already agreed, other people coming forwards, disassociating, removing Stuart Sivray from the Council of Ministers. It was political. It was led from within the highest levels of civil service, the civil service, that control our lives. And they stay there after the election, by the way. They don't get elected. They're there all the time. Unless they get fired, but that's a sideways move. It's not normally fired, it's normally off ill.
It's a golden handshake, isn't it?
Handshake,
What they get.
Parachute, yeah. Never admitting that they're fired. And then they're off on their final salary pension schemes, hundreds of thousands of pounds for the taxpayer. No, then the ordinary politicians that are trying to do something that haven't got the support, that don't go 100% with the establishment party, and they raise concerns like Stuart did, they're chastised, they're hunted down, and they're put in a position, like Stuart was, where, as I've said before, Stuart said some things and has done some things, in my opinion, that were mistakes. But I couldn't have done, or I don't think anybody could have done the job that he's done in raising the issue to the level he's done. And I certainly believe that he'll go forwards into Strasbourg, and I think he will come back, and I think he will win the day. But along the way, he's managed to lose a lot of support because they've been able to point to these failings in his progress because of the enormous psychological pressures he's been under. He's been under tremendous stress. They raided his house. They came and they took him to jail. You know, they didn't allow him the right to give a public interest defence. When we introduced the data protection law, Emma Martins told us that quite clearly from the now Deputy Bailiff, the then Attorney General, the advice was, this is on PPC, Privileges and Procedures Committee, I was a member, introducing the data protection law shouldn't be a concern for Jersey and politicians in Jersey, because we will always have the right to call upon a public interest defence. And that's a very difficult thing to actually distinguish for or against. Now, they've done it in Jersey. They've said, oh, we don't think that's in the public interest. Well, who determines the public interest? The Attorney General determines the public interest, because the Attorney General is the only person that can bring a prosecution.
But this puts fear into anybody speaking out when they see what they've done to.
If they can do it to the Chief of Police, they can do it to Senator Sivray, they can do it with all of these other people. You know, you look at
Dr. John Day.
Dr. Day, I was in the hospital last week talking about another employee that they're treating appallingly, and I've been to other places, and I don't want to mention the names, but there are cases ongoing where the states just act as really bad employers and treat their employees disgracefully. And the politicians that are being led by these civil servants and led by the grouping that they're involved in haven't got the nous, haven't got the intelligence or the courage to stand up and say, no, we will lead the civil service. In many respects, the civil service is leading them, and they may feel that they're in charge when they're cutting the ribbon and opening the new facility. Yeah. But that's just, you know, puppet stuff.
So if there's a culture of fear, as I think we've established amongst states members, and you've got parliamentary privilege, what kind of a chance do you think the normal member of public have got, where we haven't got parliamentary privilege? We're, a lot of us, myself included, are living in massive fear of this government.
Now, ordinary people, when it affects their lives and their actual living, are scared to come back and say something.
Do you feel now that you have given your evidence as such parliamentary privilege in the States of the conversation you heard between the former Chief Minister and former Home Affairs Minister? Do you fear any kind of retribution now to yourself? Do you think you might be a bit of a target?
Well, yeah, they probably won't make it so obvious when they do it, but I would imagine the wheels have probably been set in motion already if they've not already done it. You know, you don't hear about these things until you think sometime later, or you hear something later. Yeah, without a doubt, there's no doubt in my mind that there will be, you know, there'll be a payday for this without question.